Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Amita Rari, and coming up in today's newscast, the United States joins in on condemning Israel over a visit to Temple Mount. Meantime, the new government proposing and defending a number of major changes, including in judicial appointments and punishments for convicted terrorists. Then later, an incredible new upgrade to Israel's Spyder air defense system. The perceived challenges to the status quo in Jerusalem now on the docket at the United Nations Security Council, but while similarly biased discussions on Israel typically vetoed by the United States, this time Washington seemingly having a change of heart. ILTV's Aaron Porres with more.
The United Nations Security Council now preparing to hold yet another discussion on Israel's alleged crimes. This time, the crime being a widely publicized 13-minute visit to the Temple Mount Plaza by Israeli National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir. The Security Council taking on the case following widespread international condemnation of the visit for apparently harming the status quo on the Temple Mount, a status quo in which Jews are not allowed to pray atop the plaza, as it and the Al-Aqsa Mosque are essentially under the management of the Jordanian Muslim Waqf Council.
Die Bundesregierung lehnt einseitige Schritte, die den historischen Status quo auf dem Tempelberg gefährden, ab. Und das haben wir immer wieder deutlich gemacht. Der gestrige Besuch ist eine Provokation und deshalb lehnen wir dieses Vorgehen ganz klar ab.
It is the international community that decides the fate of defending and protecting the historic status quo in Jerusalem in the defense of the Islamic and the Christian sites in Jerusalem.
Meantime, the United States also taking Israel by surprise by jumping on the condemnation bandwagon. U.S. State Department Speaker Ned Price saying that the White House stands firmly for the preservation of the historic status quo and against any unilateral actions that depart from it. The United States statement particularly surprising, however, as neither it nor any of the other statements acknowledged the importance of the Temple Mount to Jewish worshippers, only Muslim or at best Muslim and Christian. Additionally, the statements ignoring the fact that Ben-Gvir and many other Jews before him simply visited the Temple Mount Plateau, a large outdoor area outside the Al-Aqsa Mosque, just as they've done countless times before. And Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu reiterating that Israel has no intentions to alter the so-called status quo to begin with. That said, Netanyahu and Ben-Gvir insinuating that Israel's sovereignty over Jerusalem, including the area of the Temple Mount, should mean the extension of freedom of religion for all. Speaking at the annual Jabotinsky conference on Wednesday, Netanyahu saying that his new government will bring with it a determination and a national revision.
נעשה רוויזיה ביחסי החוץ. קולנו יישמע בעולם. במקום הרכנת ראש וכניעה לתכתיבי הקהילה הבינלאומית, נעמוד בגאון על האינטרסים שלנו במדינת ישראל ובארץ ישראל.
Israel is reportedly trying to prevent a meeting of the UN Security Council today regarding the visit of National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir to the Temple Mount. And with us on it today is former ambassador to the US, Danny Ayalon. Hi, Danny. Good to have you.
Good to be with you.
Now, the United Nations Security Council will be meeting today in an urgent session to consider Minister Ben-Gvir's visit to the Temple Mount. How much of a problem is this for Israel?
Well, it depends on the result. It cannot, the Security Council cannot be, let's say, restricted from being convened, but they not always get a resolution. A lot depends on the United States to prevent even bringing it up to a resolution. And then the question is whether they will come with something which is very, very diluted, like what is called the presidential statement. But for that, you need a consensus of all 15 members of the Security Council. And again here, if the United States objects, then it will be just a debate, but it will be a very, very futile debate, and that will be it.
Netanyahu keeps saying Israel will maintain the status quo and there was no violation whatsoever. Why did this become such a big deal?
I think because of the, on the one hand, the anticipation, because of the very, I would say, what is looked upon as provocative statements by the new Israeli government, especially by Itamar Ben-Gvir. And he's like a lightning rod. So for him to do that as a minister, this is something that I think provoked all the criticism. But I believe that the way it was done, only for 13 minutes with a break of dawn, it's like he was doing it only to check the box. And I believe this is what the Americans understand. We have to remember that Netanyahu asked Ben-Gvir not to go. And I'm sure that the Americans understand it. Hence, we see a very, I would say, weak response by the Americans. And I think they will let it go this time.
The U.S. was somewhat critical of the Temple Mount visit. In their hints, they may not veto the expected anti-Israel resolution. Is that likely, do you think?
Well, first of all, I don't think that they will even bring it up to a resolution. They have the power to just prevent it from coming up to a resolution and leaving it on the level of debate only. Debate without results, as I mentioned, unless they have a unanimity to have some kind of a statement of, regret and maybe even stronger words. I don't think the United States will want to be in a position of isolation in the Security Council at this point. They will not want to cast the veto. And this is why I don't think that this is in the cards. By the way, it's almost a mirror image of what's happening. Of course, I'm talking about Security Council. It's not on the same level, and I'm not comparing, of course. But the Russians are not allowing the Security Council to discuss the Russian war crimes in the Ukraine. So because they have the veto power. So the Americans can do the same.
And just following up on that, what does this say about ties between the Biden administration and the new Bibi government?
Well, that's a very good point to look at. We have to remember that Biden called to congratulate Bibi last week, and with very warm words. They are very good friends for many decades, 4 decades or so. And Biden himself is a very true friend of the State of Israel and supports it almost unequivocally. He is calling himself publicly a Zionist. So there is no appetite at the administration of Biden to pick a fight with Israel, as it was the case with Obama. We are in a totally different administration, and although there are quite a few Obama officials from his administration that moved on to work with Biden, but he is at the end of the day calling the shots.
Well, Israel very much wants to promote the Abraham Accords and even eventual relations with Saudi Arabia. How much, Danny, if at all, is this a setback for better relations with the Arab world?
So far, I believe no harm has been done. As I mentioned, although it was the Emirates that brought the issue to the Security Council, but they did it on a technical basis because they are the representative of the Arab countries, and they did only on behalf of Jordan and the Palestinians. I believe that the interests are such because of the intransigence of Iran, the growing threat from Iran, which is defying the entire international community and continues both with its illegal nuclear program and with the subversion in the region and terror all over the country, all over the Middle East. Actually, Saudi Arabia and the Gulf countries are under the most threat from Saudi Arabia. So I believe that the interest will bring these countries together to continue and work and develop even the Abraham Accords. I believe with Saudi Arabia, it's just a matter of time. Right now, the king is still Salman. He's 87 years old. He's the old guard. I don't think anything in the open will happen during his reign, but his son, Mohammed bin Salman, MBS, I believe once he has the reins of power, I think that take no much time for formal relations to develop. But of course, on Israel's part, I believe what we have seen with Itamar Ben-Gvir, if we can lay this to rest and no more what they consider as provocations take place, then I think that there is no danger to the very good relationship between Israel and the Arab countries.
Danny Ayalon, thank you very much.
My pleasure.